Good afternoon, parents. I'm going to teach you the strategies we use for subtraction. If you notice, the same strategies for addition are the same strategies for subtraction. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now, usually when we're teaching kids to subtract, we always start off with the base 10 blocks, which are these. So if I ask the kids, could you show me what 100 minus 65 looks like? Usually the kids will say 100 and they'll say minus 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, that's not correct. So what we have to teach the kids is that we are actually taking 65 out of the 100. See, what they're still doing is trying to take the two numbers and subtract. But when you're subtracting, we want to go and hone in on to the kids that you're taking something away from the whole. So we always use the term whole. So we're taking 100 away from 65. And I tell the kids, and I'll start with standard algorithm because we have to do both side by side. So friends, if we're taking 100 minus 65, and we have our base 10 blocks, we have 100, right? Do we have 5 units? Do we have any ones, any tens? No, but we have 100, right? And this is the hardest for kids. So we're going to go borrow, and I like to play with, say, a cup of sugar. Since we have 100, we're going to regroup, parents, that 100 into tens, because tens doesn't have any. So 10 tens makes 100. So now we don't have any hundreds left, but we have 10 tens. So we say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm sorry. And that's fine. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So now that the tens have some, they can give some to the ones. So you have to remind them we're giving it to the ones. So now we're going to convert that 110 into units. So now we're going to move that here, and that's going to become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now can we subtract? Yes, we can, Miss White. So now we can take 5 units away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many are left? 5. And as they're using the base 10 blocks, I'm going with them step by step. This is the hardest for them to subtract. So I'm showing them step by step. That's 10. Now we have 9 left. Now we have 10. So that's 5. Now we can take away 6. So let's take away 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many should we have left? 3. So the answer is 35. We do the base 10 blocks over and over until the children really understand the concept of regrouping, especially with the zeros, which is the hardest for them. Now, I will teach you a trick, and I only teach these kids once they've mastered how to do it without it. I'll say the easiest way so they don't have to regroup, as long as it has zeros. If it doesn't have zeros, parents, they can't do it. It has to have zeros. So let's take 1 away from 10. That becomes 9. And then this will become 10 again, because you have 9 tens and 10 units, which still makes 100. So 10 minus 5 is 5, and 9 minus 6 is, is 3. And it'll do the same thing as if it was 1,000. Now this is the trick, but I don't like to teach them this until they have mastered it. And so you can say, take 1 away, that becomes 99, and this becomes 10. So 10 minus 3 is 7. 99 minus 36 is 36. So it's 637. But that's just a trick where you take away 1 from each, so they don't have to regroup. But we really want to teach them how to regroup correctly. Same thing with the subtraction strategies. 100 minus 65. We're going to skip count because this was the scale of this number line. I always ask them to scale. So we're going to go backwards from 100. And we're going to count back to 65. So I have to tell them to count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay, so how do we get to 65? Well, in between 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. So we should end at 35. Right there, because what's in between 30 and 40? 35. Strip diagram, we have 100. And the other part is 65. So remember that this is our whole. This is our part. This is our other part. So we have a whole minus a part equals a part. So when we know that we have a missing part, we can figure out what it is. So then that's when they use one of the strategies, 65. They know that this means 100 minus 65 equals the difference. And we start to say the term difference because they may see that throughout test or in word problems. Before I go, I just want to show you a couple of ways we subtract. So the basic subtraction problem is so simple. Mrs. White had $1,000. She spent $526 at H-E-B. How much did she have left? So that number, sentence, or equation is to say 1,000 minus 526 equals what? Blank. And we know that because it says she what? Spent let us know that we're, Spent lets us know that we're doing what? We are subtracting. So I have them look at the actual verb so they know she had. So she had it, that's a key word, that was her whole, that this was her total to begin with. And so then they use one of the strategies that they like best to solve. A comparing subtraction problem will be worded something like Mrs. White flew for 197 miles. Mrs. Lipshoot flew for 89 miles. How many more miles did White fly than Mrs. Lipshoot? So they know that means to compare. And I always tell them to put a cloud over the word than. And whenever they see many more or many fewer, they know that they're getting ready to compare. So they simply know to write 197 minus 89, and then they know to subtract. That's your equation, that's your number sentence. The last type of problem I'm going to show you, it said Mrs. White had $200 budget to buy food. She spent some at Target. Now she has $98 left. How much did she spend at Target? Now this type of problem is a missing add-in, so then we go back. It said Mrs. White had $200. So obviously that's how much I started off with, right? Okay. She said she spent some at Target. Friends, do we know how much she spent? No. So that's a question mark, just like in the part whole. And then it says now she has $98 left. So that's how much I left. So how much did she spend at Target? Well, we don't know. And it's just like a part whole. We have 200. We know one part, but we don't know the other. But she has 98 left. So then I said, well, how can we figure out how to figure out how much she spent at Target? Well, they can tell. I said we can count up, or we can still subtract. But the problem is that they need to know that there was a missing part. So then we tell them, well, we can just do 200 minus 98. And then we do the same thing. We can do 19 minus 9, but I don't like to teach them the trick constantly. So we just go through the standard algorithm, and that is subtraction.